pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Success. No one kneeled. Okay. All right. Any subtractions from the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
All moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, presentation from the Woodland Development vacating drainage utility easement application in the Pioneer Preserve.
Mr. Mayor, it's a public hearing.
That's a public hearing? Oh, all right, so I'll open up a public hearing then, right? Okay, I'll open up a public hearing. Pages 1 through 9. Who do we have here for that?
A1 or 1 or what is it?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Byron Westland from Woodland Development. We're the applicant for this.
Okay,
Just a quick highlight, what we're trying to do is, we have also a request for a revised plat. We'd like to take 3 lots that are already platted in Pioneer's Preserve, and replat those into 2. So this requires a vacation of the easements on one of the lots.
it requires, doing what? The easement?
Vacating the lot, the easement on one of the lots.
Is that on page 7?
So looking at the diagram on the wall here, there's 3 different lots here. It's 13, 14, and 15. And they would like to go from 3 lots into 2 lots. And there's drainage and utility easements. If you look, they're crosshatched. They'd like to vacate those because the replat will recreate drainage and utility easements on the common line of the 2 new lots. And so
Okay.
this is simply, the public hearing is for the vacation of drainage and utility easements along lots 13, 14, and 15.
Okay. Is there anyone here who wants to speak towards that? Okay, hearing none. What else do we have to do on this, Elizabeth? Is there,
There's a resolution that we need to adopt with this.
what page is that? 9?
It is
Page 8.
on page 8.
Make a resolution number 1740 on vacation of a drainage and utility easement.
Okay, well, technically, we need to close a public hearing first, right?
Oh.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, if I may add one additional condition to the resolution, that it be contingent or subject to the approval of the preliminary and final plat and contingent on the recording of the final plat as
Okay.
amended, and that would be Pioneer's Preserve Second Edition.
okay, motion maker want to
Yes.
adopt that? Who seconded it?
Nobody yet.
Second.
Oh, Mark seconded it. All right, further discussion? I'm in the stereo spot, so I...
So is there no easement, there are no utilities in it right now? They're just for a realignment? Okay.
My understanding, there are sewer and water pipe stubs. One will be, is it abandoned or capped?
Abandoned, I believe.
Yeah, we abandon the sewer and then cap the water.
And then there's one fire hydrant on lot 13, and my understanding is the applicant will work around it.
Okay,
So you're going from 3 lots to 2 for a particular reason? It just didn't work out, or
Bigger houses?
Larger houses.
your houses?
yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor of adopting resolution number 1740? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have accessory building ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, you have one more motion to make.
Oh, what, for what?
So we just had a public hearing discussion in motion
Oh,
on
yeah.
the vacation of the drainage and utility easement. The next
Oh, yeah.
motion is the approval of the preliminary and final plat for Priner Preserve Second Edition.
Okay, someone want to make a motion to approve or deny?
So move to approve. Second.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, what do you got for us tonight?
Mr. Mayor, Council. Well, since you've already taken care of the first one,
Yep,
the next one is our friend, the accessory buildings,
yep,
along with the Connex boxes.
yep.
Last time I was here, Mr. Mayor and Council, you guys laid out how it was you wanted that ordinance. This is in reflecting that. With a vote of 4-1, the Planning Commission recommends that you adopt the ordinance 7. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Everything that the council and the mayor talked about at that meeting
yeah,
is currently in there.
Correct me, I mean, I believe I was thinking that it was 1 up to 4.5. I thought it was 1 per 4.5, 4.75, not just 1 for 4.75.
1.47.
One container for every 4.75 acres,
And that-
right? That's how it came out. So if you have 1,000 acres, you get 1 container.
One container.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that it was so much per acre, but,
It was 1 container for any property greater
Yeah.
than 5 acres.
okay. So, yeah, with that in mind, I'm probably not going to vote for it. So I know you guys were going that way, but I thought it's a guy who has 40 acres and they're all screened. This is pretty silly, so.
Well, I had a question. I thought that we were back farther than 20 feet. I thought we were 50 feet from the lot line, from an adjoining property.
I think the question came in there that it's personal property, and it's pretty tough to say where your personal property can be, but it's easy to say it can't be in the setback, right? Jake, that was the theory there. So the setback for a or accessory building is 20 feet from the property line and in the backyard.
Mr. Mayor, that's my understanding, but at this point, we've seen this so many times, I can't exactly identify
I
the,
don't think anyone up here exactly could identify all of it, but I did read it.
Yeah, I think the other discussion was if it was going to be 80% screened, whether it was 20 or 50 feet from the property line, as long as it was 80% screened, which is the screening on number 2.
So we did knock it down to 20 feet?
So we ended up reducing it to 20 feet.
Because it has to be screened. I
Because
think
it has to be
because it has to be screened, which makes sense. I mean, at least you can't put them on the property line anymore, which I don't think is a good idea. So, I mean, that part of it I like. I like the the calling out of the vinyl hoop buildings and such. Just doesn't say they're not allowed, but it says they have to be screened in the backyard. So, Elizabeth, if this is adopted, how will that work with everybody who has them in the front yard?
Grandfathered in.
Those will be, grandfathered in, from what my understanding is.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
if I may, with respect to a hoop building, state law only allows it to be grandfathered in, only allows it to be repaired up to 50% of its value. If it's more than 50% of its value, with a hoop building that is, say, wiped out at more than, 100% of its value or 75% of its value, would arguably lose those non-conforming rights. So if it is destroyed or it becomes in disrepair, the city may have a mechanism to remove it at that point.
Okay. Okay, so I would like to change K number 5 to 1 per 4.75 acres. If a guy's got 10 acres and they're going to require to be screened, so you're not going to know they're there. What's the difference? I think this ordinance does good keeping them off the property line, does good keeping them out of the front yard, does good keeping them from being stacked, does good keeping them from being marked up with logos and such. So I like that part of it. I just think the numbers are,
I disagree with that, because I think if they're gonna put 5 or 10 of them on 40 acres, then they should put up a nice building.
well, they'll be taken twice, though there's a penalty for that though, Mark. It's two times your square footage.
Correct.
So there's a penalty for doing that. So if you're gonna do that, you're gonna lose your ability to add. So we took care of that in,
Can't find it. Where, there's something in
Says-
about the PUD too.
yeah, that was good.
Where's,
You can't have them within a PUD.
Right.
so the new development, they can't be allowed there.
Yeah, and that's fine. I like that idea.
I read it here, but now I'm having,
Yeah, where was that? It was,
it's under 7.
container may be replaced, may not be replaced on any property approved as part of a planned unit development in which lot averaging was used to create a lot of less than 5 acres, regardless of the subject property size. I think that's fair. I like that.
Well, I mean, I still see a couple issues with this, but whatever.
Which ones?
Well, the fact
Do it.
that we're going to put Conex boxes on property, I mean, I still go back to my original argument. We extended the accessory buildings, made them bigger and everything. I mean, shipping containers, we're not going to be able to, I mean, capture any, and it's going to sound bad, probably some people, but we're not going to be able to capture any tax base on this. I mean, it's another way to run around. You got your neighbor putting up a building,
yep.
and you're going to use a Conex box instead. I don't.
It's a gap term for when you build your, let's just say, in the last 20 years, we've restricted the size of these accessory buildings. So I can name many locations where there's a really fairly good size pole building with one Conex box sitting next to it. There's 2 on Potomac. I can go around the city. The guy's got 1, you know, maybe 2, and it's as Danny says, it's mice-proof, it's
Well,
weather-proof, it's,
And there's no argument there that there's some people that are cognizant of their neighbors and they put it behind their pole barn and they keep things mowed and they keep things nice, but then there's other ones that the
Put 'em in the
junk
front
just
yard.
collects around the outside of them, you know?
Right, well-
One guy we asked to paint it, he painted it a color that still is not,
white.
it's conducive to the rest of his, whatever. So the attempt was minimal, I don't know.
Dave, can I go back to number 5?
Sure.
That excludes, though, if it's ag, the property's ag,
Yeah.
that doesn't count towards that then.
It wouldn't count
Or
towards the,
Commercial.
right.
It's just residential properties.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Property over 20 acres is not, it's not, we don't have an ag zoning.
Right.
So it's a little bit more complicated about an ag use.
Yes.
An ag use is if you've put more than 10 acres into a farming, you know what I mean, use. So we don't have any zoning for ag, so that would be, I think, kind of difficult for me to enforce unless you have a district or
Right.
some other definer as to what ag is.
The other problem is that we really haven't defined here what a property is. Is a property all the property that you own, contiguous property, or is a property a PID? That's going to come up for Elizabeth when she has to determine how many you get, because a lot of people have 2 10s. That means they get 1 per 10? How's that going to work?
Well, does a piece of property have a residential dwelling on it?
One of them does and one of them
Well,
doesn't.
technically, the one that doesn't, you can't put a building on because there's no residential, you can't build a
Accessory buildings.
accessory building before you build your residence. Most of the
Got to have
time,
something to be
correct, Elizabeth?
accessory too.
Yes, but when we look at total acreage, we combine the acreage. In other words, if you have a house and you have, you know what I mean, 10 acres, you can build a bigger building on your one that you have on your house on.
Right,
But if you sell the lot, then you gotta reduce it. And that's what when people subdivide and they have those big buildings and then they retain.
Except for the turkey farm.
Right, then they have to reduce the buildings to the,
that lot
to
line.
the size. So that was one of my questions. Is this
So what-
per property
so-
or per parcel?
So you're saying if a guy owns a 20 and it's 2 10s, 2 separate parcels, they can use the 2 10s to put one big gigantic pole barn on the 10 they're living on, and the 10 next to them doesn't have any residential? You know what I'm saying? So they got two 10s side by side.
Yep.
When they go to come in for a permit for a pole building, they get to account for the 10 next to them that they own too, and then build the pole building twice as big as it should be on.
That's what they asked for.
Bill, you're trying to say that if it's two separate lots, not a combination lot?
Yeah, she's
That's
saying
what-
exactly what I'm asking.
That's what I thought, but that's, they can build bigger on two lots if it's different plot number and everything on a separate lot.
Yep, different PID.
Okay.
Well, see, ours is that way, two different 5s and their pole barns on one and the houses on the other. But that happened a long, long time ago. I mean, 1994.
Long time
So
ago.
you'd have to combine those lots to do what you're doing now.
You would have to, yes.
Right. Well, you can't do nothing. You can't, there's no access to it, so.
Well, you could combine it, though.
Well, yeah. Well, there was reasons for that. One lot's a Torrance, one's an abstract. We didn't want to combine them. So, whatever. There you go.
I rest my case on that. It's not as easy as it looks.
No.
So, I don't know, I like a lot of this stuff, I just think it's, if it said one per four, even if it said one for the first one, see, it says less than 4.5, you can't have any, right?
Less than 4.75.
4.75, you can't have any. But you could have one over 4.75, and one for each 10 acres after that. I'd be all right with that.
Well, I'd like to see it left the way it is, and I'd like to make a motion on that effect. Can I get an ordinance number for that?
1702.
Like to make a motion.
Still haven't addressed the other issues, but go ahead, you
What's
make a
that?
motion.
Which ones do you want to
He's
do?
got a motion on the table, do we have a second?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 1702.
As it is,
as
okay?
it is.
I don't hear a second. All right.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second it, all right. So, open discussion on it then.
So, what was the other?
The other thing is that whether or not it has, is it per PID or per contiguous property like the accessory buildings are?
Well, you can't build one of those if you're in the POD area, right?
No, I mean, no, PID, not PUD.
You can't put one on a vacant lot. You can only put it on your own lot, but if you own contiguous parcels, do you get credit?
So if you own 2 acres, right, and then you own the 5 next door,
Then you're going to put Conex boxes?
one Conex box on your 2.5 acres, because you own 5 next door, is that going to be allowed?
No, there's
Is that your
no-
question, Elizabeth?
Correct. So the question came up to me was, if I own 3 parcels, can I have three separate parcels, can I have 3 Conex boxes on my property?
Why don't they just build an accessory building that equals that square footage and then the problem's solved?
Why can you,
That wasn't the question, though.
You-
I know,
you're
that's
talking
the
about-
answer.
Well, if we leave it as is, then you can't.
Right? You would have to say, a property owner shall be permitted to have 1 container per property.
Yeah.
Per
Yep.
property, not on a property.
I'm okay with that.
So you could have 90 acres, but your house is on 3, and you can't have a container.
Build a pole barn.
Okay, all right, it just sounds unreasonable, Mark, so I would never vote for
Everybody's
it.
entitled to their opinion.
I get that.
Yep.
Okay, so any other discussion? I'll do a roll call vote on this one. Denny?
aye,
Aye.
Mark? Or Jack? Bill?
Aye.
Nay. Okay, so that passes. All right, any other discussion you have for us?
Actually, it sounds like, Mr. Mayor, you pretty well took care of it in your
Mr.
Okay.
meeting. Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, I apologize. Before we move on, can we get a motion to approve the summary publication as proposed in the amendments on A1?
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the summary amendments of A1? Someone want to make that motion?
The one we just did, right?
Yep.
So moved.
second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Okay, ayes have it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, Council, the rest of our meeting was taken up with our friend, the comp plan.
Okay,
In that, we looked at Macomb study and also the requirements that the Met Council's putting on the city. Not to duplicate probably what you already discussed in your previous meeting. Basically, the Planning Commission was looking at situations where the overlay in the northwest and the southeast districts on the freeway district were actually changed to a suburban residential, to look at a situation where we could pick up more housing there. That would also allow for a mixed use, where you could end up with retail underneath residential, occupying that space. That being the case, we look forward to the meeting on the 6th with the council and hopefully a lot of the owners in the area to get their input as well.
So that is a recommendation by the planning commission to have the joint meeting at one of their meetings on December 6th. So
I'm
that's,
sorry, I thought the city council had actually asked for that.
they asked for the meeting, but they didn't set the date.
I beg your
So
pardon.
the planning commission talked about what meeting they would like it out, so that, the 6th is a recommendation to the council.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, Council, if it had worked with schedules, the Planning Commission would like to schedule that meeting for December 6th at 7 o'clock. We'll have our regular Planning Commission meeting at 6 o'clock. Adjourn, take a short recess, and then get into the workshop roundtable discussion on land use.
anyone have any problems with the date?
No problem.
I won't be here.
Okay, so we got 4 people. So,
Can we talk about some particulars with this? So is it the intent that we are inviting the planning commission and council, and then we're inviting all the property owners, business owners in the freeway district? Who is the group we're targeting and who are we inviting?
I thought this wasn't that meeting. I thought this was the meeting just for the comp plan amendment stuff.
Not amendment, the actual comp plans.
Comp plans, right, comp plan Thrive 2020 or whatever the hell it's called.
Well, this,
2040, there you
I mean,
go.
I was there last week, so this meeting was to put the, because there's some confusion about what should be done with the properties, and they thought maybe they should get some input from the actual people that own the property in the freeway district, so especially you're looking on the, the east side and probably the northwest side.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Sure.
sorry, I obviously jumped the gun a bit. The direction that we've gotten from the Met Council is they expect Columbus to grow by 1,630 bodies in population. They expect 775 households, and with that, another 430 jobs.
That's 50%.
Yep. Bottom line is, we need someplace to put them.
Well, they're not telling us what we're doing. I mean, we're telling them what we're doing.
Where,
The question is what we want to do.
exactly. The recommendation from the Met Council, sir.
So I think I need a further clarification. So are you thinking that first you want to have a joint meeting with the planning commission and then a meeting in, because we need to know sooner than later if we're going to have feedback for the comp plan, because we have to have it done by June of next year. So is it your intent that you're having first a meeting together and then bring the property owners in?
That's what I thought we were doing, but I mean, if you'd like to do it all at the same time, I don't think we're going to get it done.
It's a lot of stuff.
I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that and
And I think it's a little short notice to bring property owners in on December 6th. They usually need a couple months' notice for that. I thought this was just a meeting to go over what we have envisioned for the city for Thrive 20, whenever. What do you guys think? You want to bring everybody in at once, or what?
I think we'll get nothing accomplished.
I do
if we
too.
that.
So-
When do they have to know by? The Met Council? Is there a time frame?
Our plan has to be done by June of 18. And then we circulate it to the surrounding communities for feedback. So the idea is that if you have issues and questions, that you open it up to, you know what I mean, the particular group that you're working with for feedback so you can make a decision. 10 years ago, when we didn't quite know where we wanted to put the zoning districts, we had 5 public meetings. And we brought 5 groups in and determined whether or not it was going to be a commercial district or not, what the boundaries were going to be. And so you got feedback, and then after the feedback, then you decided what the determination was going to be for the boundaries of the districts.
So this isn't just about that, though. This is about other things in the whole community. This is not just about our freeway district. It's about other things.
The councils and the mayor's vision
Right.
for the city.
But I think last week's concern is that they've had 2 meetings now, and they're kind of, I want to use the right word, they're trying to figure out what to do with different sections down there, because the Nacomb study said that we have too much,
Community retail.
yeah, too much community retail, and we need some more residential, and I think they were looking to us to help them with that section of that, and the only way to do that was maybe have the, I know we need to talk, probably, but it was to find out what the actual property owners maybe want to do with their property. Because, I mean, you're standing back throwing darts at the board going, oh, we're going to do this to this. Well, maybe there's some developers out there right now that have different plans, that have some plans on things that are going on there that maybe they don't want to be. Because then if it goes residential or goes commercial and they bring some in, then they got to go in and get a comp plan adjustment, or what do you call it, comp plan? Amendment, and that's a lot of baloney. So that was, I think that's what they were trying to do with this section of the comp plan, is to figure out.
But if you're going to put outdoor storage in the freeway district, that's a major shift. And that's what a lot of people want down there.
Well, but some people, there's other plans for other things right now that are going on, that it's in the planning stages. So I don't know. I mean, they talked about, I mean, you know, the Met Council is, they should come in here and talk to us again too, because they've forgotten half of Columbus is underwater and another 25% of it has been taken away for wetlands. We don't have all this space for residential property or residential housing, and we only have so much sewer and water. So, I don't know.
I think we have to decide what's the goal. Is the goal to get information from others for you to make a decision, or is it for you to make a decision and tell everyone what you're doing? Because that's 2 different things.
Very well put. So, did you guys want to just go on your gut feelings and just put what you think there, or do you want to get the people's, the owners, I'll say the owners' input, because that's 2 different things.
Well, the complications are farther down Lion Street, past 141st, is that what it is? 145th. It's stubbed to 145th, so there's a whole bunch of property down there that's high and dry, but there's no sewer and water down there.
It's planned to go there.
It's planned, but it's huge money to get it there. So what's going to make sense? Houses down there? I mean, they're talking, Dean's talking apartment buildings. I mean, we've talked about this for years.
Still haven't got the number, the design number for the potential revenue stream from taxes on residential versus commercial versus, you know, I mean, we have the 23 district where pole buildings and, you know, it's kind of whatever low-end buildings get put up, doesn't have a high tax base. I mean, we've got a higher standard in the commercial, the freeway district, and, you know, if you ask the residents, they're going to probably say, yeah, I want that because I can sell my property for easier because I have a lower building standard. So I guess it's, the question is whether your voters who elect you are going to go with what you say, or you want to ask them again. Because a lot of the, the determination on which way you're going to go is I mean, there's more people in the mass of that elect you than in the freeway district.
Yeah, but it's not, but they're not talking right now about 2.5 acre lots. They're talking about what goes on in the freeway district. I mean, we have a gentleman here that's got a development going on the northwest side, and, you know, that's what,
The purpose of zoning is to preserve one's expectations of their land use. We have zoning for horse racing district, which preserves that for horse racing. They don't particularly like the zoning that we have next to them. Just like Danny Mike doesn't like the zoning that he can't put an ambulance base built out of a wood pole shed. You know, all these people have their reasons for doing what they want to do, and it's motivated in their land sale. If we don't have a cohesive view of what we want it to look like, then we will be doing this willy-nilly zoning by what do you call that, Jake? Zoning by spot zoning. Thank you. Count on Jody; she always knows. So we'll be doing the spot zoning. So I think we need to get the feedback from the community, from the people, but I think the big picture has to be done at a level where us who are supposed to be the knowledge arbiters and understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and leverage the fact of what's been done in the past to know our commitment level, because our commitment level at the dollars for the sewer and the water can't be breached. That has to be held. So we can't just spot zone this and that, and then our water fund is underwater, no pun intended.
but I don't think that's the spot zoning thing is where they're going. I mean, Dean's making recommendations based on what the Met Council is pushing.
But no one's told us whether a big apartment building is going to pay more than a Gander Mountain, who isn't there. So we don't know yet. Tammy was going to supposedly come up with some ideas for that.
But the problem last week watching the planning commission is the chair, I mean, Dean's saying we should make sure that it's zoned on the north side of 97 or 23 because that's a natural barrier for more residential housing such as the applicant has going on there now. And then, of course, the chair of the planning commission, his argument is that that's prime commercial real estate on the north side of 97. And then they're talking about houses with shops underneath. How that works there, I don't know. It could maybe. But then on the other side, there was a couple of commissioners that talked about residential housing between Hornsby and backing up to Forest Lake. And so that's what we're talking about. I think it's spot zoning. I don't know where that comes, what we're talking about, because right now there's going to be, the Met Council does not want an overlay like we have now. So we got commercial property with a residential overlay. They want it designated, and that's where we're having some issues. So we already have some developers that have purchased some fairly good-sized tracts on the east side. And so I think the thought was of where is their vision to go with these big tracts. Some of it might be housing, some of it might be, I mean, there's plans for one business down there now. It's kind of turning into a long shot, but it may happen, and it's between Hornsby and the highway. So, they're just trying to sort their way through it, so.
Mr. Mayor, part of the rest of that is understanding what it is the council and the mayor believe that area is going to look like for the planning commission. Once we've got some idea what it is you envision in that area, we can then go back and make a plan work around that.
Do you want public to come in, or don't you want the public to come in?
I would recommend the public come in and at least be able to tell the council and the mayor what it is they would like to see, not necessarily what's going to happen.
But what are we talking about? The landowners who actually hold the property, or people in Columbus who think they know what should go there? I mean,
Landowners.
Right.
It's hard balanced, but I think we have to almost listen to what they want, and then we have to make our decision after that. But at least we have to kind of give them an input. I mean, you'd want that if it was your property, wouldn't you, Dave?
I would, but
Yeah.
I would hope there'd be a overall 10,000-foot view of what's going to happen here, because, you know, what I want isn't necessarily going to be the exact right thing for the whole area.
I agree.
Okay, so I would say we need to get the planning commission that information, and I thought that was the time to do it. If you guys want to include the public at that time, I guess that's fine, but I don't think it's going to work.
But I mean, what are we, I watched them do that, and my point is, Dave, is that our point of view to what should happen down there, it's gonna be confusing, just like the planning commission. That's why there's an issue, because there is different views. There's Dean pushing, there's the Met Council pushing, they're trying to get all this information together. I mean,
I don't think they're pushing for one way or the other. They're just pushing to know what our vision is, right? I mean, I don't think they can tell us.
No, they just don't want the overlay district. They want a district where housing is going to be or not be.
right.
Which,
to the
you're right,
swamp.
it's the city's decision. They just want it definitive.
Right.
So the other thought is, do we get the Met Council here? They obviously don't understand our predicament.
I don't know what they would have to say about it.
Well, I mean, they're pushing all this stuff on us, and we're obviously handicapped by lots of wetland issues.
I couldn't make a decision on this till I know what kind of revenue stream flows from residential. What we've already done, I don't know, Elizabeth, we don't even know what effect that has, right?
I would agree, and I think if that's the type of information that we want, December 6th is way too soon. You know what I mean? In other words, if we're bringing information to the table and then talking through it, it's too soon. It's too soon to put that all together, because we only have
We got to
2
finish
weeks.
budget by the end of the year.
So, yeah, it's too much. Then we'd have to push it out to January.
So what you're saying, Dave, push it out?
I'd say push it out. I mean, first off, it ain't enough notice to get landowners here by December 6th. And a lot of them have vacations. December's a tough month for everybody because of the holidays. So I think it's a bad idea to try to do everybody on the 6th. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, maybe it'd be a good idea for the planning commission and the city council and the mayor to get together on the 6th to hash over some of the issues and questions we've got before we go forward to anybody in the public.
What type of questions?
Well, where is it that you expect residential to grow, if it does grow? You're again looking at their projections, not saying that it's going to happen, but to have some direction to go, even if we end up with half or 800 bodies.
Well, anybody who's going to develop businesses that aren't relying on the drive-through traffic
Right.
are going to look for residential demographics, who lives around here. And it'll, even with a few houses, it won't stir enough interest for that type of traffic. So most of the development, and as we talked about, has been stifled by the waiting for the bridge and the interchanges. So, I guess we won't really know till, Mark and everyone else here said that, let's let it ride. And if we let it ride the way it is, then we would have to pick some area for residential and eliminate that zoning, but I don't know as if in a meeting with on the 6th was going to solve that. I couldn't say how many acres we should move to that type of zoning without knowing the financial piece of it, and it sounds to me like we won't know that on the 6th. So my opinion is we hold off till January on that. Guys, what do you think?
Yeah. Individual houses, their tax revenue just isn't there. On the apartments maybe, but like you said, you gotta know before we can make these decisions.
We have to know before we change what's been already programmed into the sewer and water funds. So sometime in January, Elizabeth, you could have that stuff?
Early, it'll be very early January.
Okay, so we'll move it to early January when we're all fresh.
That'd be great, sir.
Okay.
And then at that point, it'd be, again, just the city council and the planning commission?
If we had enough zoning, I think we'd do that first, and then we do the visioning for the groups groups of, and I don't know whether we want to do it in 4 zones, Elizabeth? 4 well, actually, there'd only be 3 quadrants, 2 quadrants. Well, there'd be 3 quadrants.
I think there would be 3, probably.
Right. I mean, the northeast quadrant is programmed by us for the most part. So we'd get those 3 groups together. So it'd start with the council, then we'd move to them once we have the dollar figures.
That'd be great, sir.
All right, anything else in your report?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all your hard work.
Have a great evening.
Now's the time for public open forum. Is there anyone here for, no? Did I miss something?
Yep, there's one more thing.
What was it?
Planning Commission report.
Oh, there was? Public hearing?
H2A2.
Oh, on the addendum there, review public hearing procedures. Okay, so, Jake, why don't you kind of frame what we were talking about as far as why we're bringing this up today?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Council, the City of Columbus has always had Planning Commission public hearing procedure. It was kind of just a long, flowery document that talked about ideals for how to govern the Planning Commission in light of what is anticipated to be a fairly well-attended public hearing on the 15th. We've looked at that and made some revisions to try to summarize it so that we can distribute it at the next, along with the next Planning Commission agenda. So this is essentially just repackaging, restating what we've previously had. We added some headings, and we wanted to just get direction, comments from the council before we publish it on the back of the Planning Commission agenda.
Okay, I know you guys need a second maybe to finish reading through that. I'll give you a minute here.
So at this hearing next, on the 15th, they're going to be looking for new information considering, or that it pertains to the text, right?
That's correct. The idea, what this basically says is, along with comport yourself with, respect, we want relevant testimony that is new and not repeated. We want to make sure that we're going to have a sign-up list. The chair will likely impose a time limit for each individual speaker. People will be called up by a number to speak. They need to sign in, and people will not be allowed to yell from the audience or make comments from the audience, and they'll be expected to be orderly and reasonable. It's basically behave like a grown-up.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Now, this 15th meeting is for the text amendment. It's nothing to do with the asphalt plant.
Correct.
That's what we've got to get across to the people, because they think it's it's nothing to do with the asphalt plant.
Indirectly it is,
Indirectly,
but
but
it's
it's
not. We do still have a application which is pending,
Right.
but it's on hold.
Yeah.
We do have some pending applications that are continued. There will be an opportunity for the applicant with those applications to appoint a representative and use their time. There are several individuals who are affected and will be appointing a spokesperson. But they have been directed, along with the rest of the public, will be directed to only address the text amendment language itself, not the proposed operation, not the business itself. Everything needs to be relevant.
It's generic, really. It's a generic for whoever gets that particular spot.
Exactly, and if there's interest in regulating this use elsewhere in the city, it would be discussing where is that appropriate, what would the applicable standards be for regulating those uses. But it's going to be only relevant testimony related to the text amendment itself. and the appropriateness of that text amendment.
So to be blunt about it, if the planning commission comes back with a denial of the text amendment, then it's going to be in our lap to do whatever we see fit. If it comes back with recommendations that help moderate the issues from the plant, then it's something that we can address, and the work would have been done by them, which they're supposed to do is to come up with what would be acceptable or what not acceptable. Danny?
I got one more.
Sure.
Clarification. If this does go through,
If the planning commission sends it through?
if the text amendment goes through,
Okay.
passed,
Okay.
and then there will be a public hearing for the asphalt plant.
Right, and if I don't want to shut conversation down, but I think we probably should. We shouldn't get too much into this discussion.
This is the
but
detail, this is
you
the
are
procedure.
absolutely correct. If the text amendment is passed, there will be a subsequent application at which those issues will be germane and relevant to be addressed, and that will be at a public hearing where people have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
This language specifically isn't designed for this public hearing, but it was updated in light of the fact that we're going to have a very well-attended public hearing.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
Maybe attach Elizabeth to each person walking through the door, get a copy of one of these and set it up there where they can't read it. Maybe a good
Yes.
idea.
We do plan to have, everyone that walks in the door will be greeted by a staff member. They'll be asked if they want to sign a sign-in sheet, because you will have to have a number if you want to testify, and they will be handed the sheet so that they know what the rules are. Procedures.
And the chair will address all in attendance what the meeting rules will be for taking the testimony.
Okay, so this is our policy, so we really don't need to vote on this. This is administratively done.
Correct.
Okay,
Does you have any comments?
any questions, comments?
Answered all mine, thank you.
All right. Now we have our public open forum. Is there anyone here for a public open forum?
Yes, good question.
Can you come up to the microphone? Let's get your name and stuff, so we know who you are.
It's a very simple one.
Then we'll have a simple answer.
Hopefully.
My name is Marge Roysom, 14016 Juilliard Street Northeast. All I want to know is what time the doors will be open on the 15th.
Generally, we open the doors 1/2 hour before the meeting. So for every meeting, they're opened at 6:30 because most of our meetings starts at 7. So that's what we are anticipating, unless the council tells us differently.
I'm sure 6:30 would be fine. I don't know why we need to open up earlier.
Okay.
6:30.
That was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public open forum? Tracy? Oh,
I'll just be over here. So I know that.
Name and address.
Sorry. I live at 8841 167th Lane,
Okay.
and I have a business on Lake Drive.
Mhm.
So I guess I wanted to say, first of all, I feel like Columbus is really turning a curve, between the bridge and the 54 coming up and the businesses that are going in.
A good curve or a bad curve?
A good curve.
Oh, okay.
No,
I didn't know where you're going.
Honestly, no, they got the
Okay.
signs out on their land for sale and all. But I won't be here for the open forum, so I don't want to address too much on the asphalt thing. But I didn't know if you guys all knew that Roseville, Columbus sat in the same spot, or Roseville City Council. And it was set to pass. And the residents came up and made a big, they rallied against it. And so a couple council members changed their mind on it. And I got me to thinking, I should, and I'm working in the cities in Columbus all the time, and I haven't talked to anybody that's for it. And I know most likely it's probably going to pass, but
Excuse me, I apologize. Mr. Mayor, if I can, again, just to remind everybody that the open forum is reserved for items that are not on the agenda and not scheduled for public hearings. So as much as I appreciate your comments, we do need to, we can take them in writing if you're on.
He had some generic things about Columbus, which seemed pretty good.
Right.
So
Well, I guess
if you
I
could just
wanted to
keep
say
your
that
comments
as
off of the asphalt plant and maybe towards
Sure. As
the
a
goal.
councilman,
Okay?
When I drive to work every day, I see where insurance auto auction could have gone.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good that it didn't, you know, I'm sure there's some that are upset that it didn't, but it got me to thinking that there's two reasons that we're on council. We're one, because we care about our community. We want to get off our couch and do something. And two, because we campaigned and we met enough people in the community that believed that what we were saying is what we were saying, that we'd represent them. And I just wanted to just let everybody know that I think it's bigger than a 4-year term or,
Okay.
you know, so it's, I guess, I'm just appealing to you guys to just think of that.
All right.
Okay?
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
I think, that being said, I think the city we're gonna be pretty cool.
All right.
It'll be a good thing.
Thanks for coming up.
Yep, thanks, Jesse.
Tracy? So with what Jake had to say in mind, you'll have to keep your comments to generalities and not specific blacktop issues.
All right, so as the representative of the largest employer, and I'm, just for the record, Tracy Wilson, the CFO for Running Aces, I would like to make another brief statement for the record. I know I made some remarks on the Economic Development Authority just probably a hour ago. But
Is this in regards
is
to
a
the blacktop plant?
This is a different council, it's the city council, and I want to make sure I have my comments on record.
Okay.
Therefore, I really respectfully ask you to allow me to read into the record some vital statistics about Running Aces. We're your largest employer, your largest contributor, and I think I've heard comments that maybe some don't know exactly what Running Aces means to the city, and I think it's important for everyone to know that. You previously, I think the discussion item was on the Freeway District earlier, correct, on some zoning?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a key item, and I think I heard a key point, which is you have zoning so you preserve the integrity, so that people can rely on what's happening in the Freeway District. So I think that's really important. I commend you for what you said. I mean, that's great. You know, I've got particular points that I can go through on Running Aces. I mean, it just we've contributed $2.3 million alone to the city of Columbus. That doesn't include property taxes of, you know, a huge amount to the Anoka, of which you get then property taxes. So we're also helping Lakes Area Youth Service Bureau. So we're charitable. We help other organizations. We're very committed to this area. We've appreciated all that you as the council members and the former council members have done for Running Aces. And we want to be a party at this decision. And I feel like you're talking about this new, I don't know, is it a new 2018 or
Thrive 2040 or something like that.
2040 plan? So is that going to precede the 2030 plan?
Right.
Is that right? And that's so important. And you've got a text amendment coming up that I feel is so polar opposite to what you're talking about with now you're talking about a 2040 plan. That's what should be discussed. Everyone should be able to rely on what you as the council are putting forward for us to rely on. If that zone is light industrial, if another zone is commercial showroom, if another zone is retail, we're relying on that information. It's very important. You've got lots of people spending a lot of money in that area. We, Running Aces, want to make more investments in the area. We want to build a hotel. That's another $10 million. I'm throwing out a rough number. We've got 675 employees. The possibility of this text amendment that's out there and what could come is detrimental. It could very well be very negative and harmful for Running Aces, your largest employer.
Okay.
So I just think it's important for, you know, if I can go through this, I will.
Well,
be happy.
we take your concern and your, to the relevance of the general zoning, because that is part of our discussion tonight. But I think the rest of your comments are probably going to go towards an asphalt plant and things like that, so you'll have to kind of reserve that for the public hearing.
So I think, you know, what I said, the general zoning, us being able to rely on your zoning is critical. Light industrial is not heavy industrial. It's just not. And I've included pictures, and you can just look at different areas for what a heavy industrial area looks like, what a light industrial area looks like, what entertainment retail looks like. I look at Running Aces, I look at the 675 employees, I look at all the horses that we have, the horse owners that come here, the number of customers that drive through. And, you know, every day that I come to work and I'm driving 35W and I see that corner spot. Now, and I just look at the land. We've got a lot of wetlands. And, you know, I just look at, you know, what do you want to see when you enter the city of Columbus? The sign, welcome, City of Columbus. That's great. That's going to be on our new bridge. I just think we're, as Jesse was saying, we're just poised, you know, to explode with growth. And I think we really have to take the time to think through the zoning and how to do it appropriately. And that's my urge to you as city council members. We've got big things. If I heard the number right, someone quoted, we might grow by 50%. That's huge. I mean, that's a big number. So I just feel like zoning is critical, and relying on the zoning is more critical. You've got areas that are zoned for commercial industrial. We have that available. But on the freeway district, we don't have that zone in that area. Our zoning is different. We're relying on the retail, the entertainment, the new bridge, the 4 quadrants. And I think I heard earlier, I wasn't sure what this is referring to, but you've got on the agenda a little bit later to talk about the county road and the realignment. And I don't know how, is that the same as what we've been looking at, or is there anything else that, I mean...
There's some potential changes, but we'll go over that later.
Okay, will I have a chance to have a discussion after?
During it, well, actually, part of that's a closed meeting.
The closed meeting is canceled.
Oh, it is? Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay.
Well, part of that, what brought on that road being moved is your boss out east, Mr. Peter Frank. We all...
The roads are being potentially, I will say not being moved, but potentially being relocated at the Running Aces request.
Yep.
So I'll see that
Yes.
later? Is that
It's
what
at
you're
Anoka
getting
County.
at?
Anoka County,
Well-
Anoka County is requesting
Is
the
all,
realignment.
and I'll have a chance to talk about that?
Well, no, the county is requesting it, but Running Aces is the drive behind it.
Partly because of the funding issue?
In the letter that was written to us, it articulates that there are some, you know what I mean, there are some reasons listing why the alternate alignment is now being pursued.
Okay.
I think the other, I will be able to talk about that later, is what you're saying.
The road alignment?
Yeah. That
If
you're
it has nothing to do with the
discussing
blacktop plant, maybe.
that. I have been very good, I haven't made that.
Right on the edge, okay.
Yeah, I've been on the border.
What's that, Elizabeth?
So, are we gonna jump to that now?
No.
I do have another
Just,
comment.
we're in a public open forum, so.
I have one more
Sure.
comment. I do have the recommendations. I know you were talking earlier about the Macomb study, And, you know, I have in front of me what the recommendations were for the freeway corridor. And, you know, it looks to me that combining the commercial retail and the commercial showroom to the same zone might provide some flexibility for you guys. Nowhere in here does it talk about creating a commercial industrial zone, which you have on Lake Drive.
Okay.
This is specifically that the CR, commercial retail.
Yep.
And the commercial.
So I tell you what, this topic would be probably better suited for a joint meeting, which you'll be attending. So I'll have to cut that off there.
December, or in January?
January, yep, we'll let you know.
Okay, so, and then I can ask questions on the.
If you raise your hand, I'll call on you when we come into that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public open forum? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the joint meeting with the City of Forest Lake. I talked to Ben, and he is interested in getting the councils together to talk about some common things we have going and some common opportunities. So when did you guys want to do that? Or would you want to do it?
I think we should. It's a good time. We had that last time. It was a good deal. We got together with someone, and I think we should do it more often.
Okay, think it's time. Denny, good? Don't care?
I don't want to make a meeting. I don't, but you guys, I don't care.
Okay. You guys okay with that or not?
Well, maybe sometime after the first of the year.
Okay.
What were you thinking, Dave?
Yeah, that probably, we got a lot going on next month or
There's a
so.
lot of stuff going on.
So we could get something planned with Aaron, Elizabeth next year? First part.
In January?
Yep.
In the 18th? Yep.
Yep. Put everything off till January. Okay, what's this next one here, Elizabeth?
So in our
Amendments here?
agenda, we have building permit, and we have an issue with the building permit. And so we have, building permit is on Coon Lake. The building permit was issued in March of this year, and there are two neighbors that are very close together because the Coon Lake lots are very close together. And so we've received a video because there seems to be a problem with water.
Is this on the north side of Coon Lake?
Be the south side.
I
of
believe
Coon
it's
Lake.
on the south side
South side of Coon Lake. First little
Coon Lake.
road that goes past Coon Lake.
So we're running into an issue now because the permit was issued in March. We're 6 months down the road. Leon has indicated that after 6 months, generally you're finished with your building permit. If you're working on your building permit and your project's a little bit longer, the permit, extends. But at this point, I did contact the property owner. He said to me that he was still working on it, promised he would put the gutters, on the accessory building. Still has not put the gutters on the accessory building. And so I'm going to play the video for you because I think the video shows more, would be easier than me explaining what's going on. But as you can see, I'm having technical difficulties here.
We'll have that taken care of by the next meeting. So is it about the overhang or just the lack of gutters in general?
The issue, I think, is really about the gutters and when you have the long, narrow lots,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and runoff and how that works.
Why aren't the gutters done?
And I can't explain to you why the gutters are not completed, but this is and we've had several rainy days.
What are we,
This is the brand-new garage to the right, and we're only talking about 12 feet. So from the property line, from the garage to the property line. And so this is the brand-new building. The video is being taken from the next-door neighbor's property.
Okay.
And because the gutters are not on the building,
Did the building permit call out for gutters?
it did, and I'm showing, and in the materials in the additions,
Where would the downspouts send the water at this point?
the water, is that rope, or that
Cord?
cord is the property line.
So where would the water, if it had gutters and downspouts, what difference would it make if it's
The-
just dumping it to the same spot?
No, it would be dumping it on the other side. The downspouts would be pointed to his own driveway. This is his neighbor's yard. So all the water from his accessory building is going into his
Well, he's
driveway.
got to get the gutters up.
I'm sorry?
He's got to get the gutters up.
And the reason why it's before you is because both Lee and I have not been able to impress upon the person that it's important to get the gutters up within 6 months. So the permit was issued in March, it's now November, and then the gutters are still not up. So the neighbor is very upset, came to the counter today, and wanted something to happen.
Well, did no one talk to the the permit holder?
I did talk to the permit holder,
When's their plans on having the gutters up?
and he indicated to me that they would be up. I talked to him in September, and he promised that they would be up in the fall, and now we're in the winter.
Well,
And-
I'm still hoping it's fall, personally. but- Well, they need to get the gutters up. I don't know. You got to control your water. It's that simple.
I would agree. So the direction is either to have our attorney draft a letter
I,
that he needs to have the gutters up by a certain time
When's the last time you talked to him?
in September.
I would talk to him again now and then
I
give him a week or something. Without
I
talking
agree.
to the attorney.
got to give them a week. Give them a week to have a firm date.
2 weeks or whatever.
Give them a week to get a firm date, and then if it doesn't give you a firm date, that's reasonable. I think reasonable would be to put those gutters up. I don't think, was the roofing on that building? I couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
it was.
Yeah, it's on.
Because usually you put the gutters on first. So that's kind of odd.
Well, you slide the gutters under the flash.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it that way, but normally you do it first.
But according to the building plans, there were gutters, you know what I mean, the gutters were supposed to be included.
Okay, I'd say we just give them a week to respond and 3 weeks to get them up. How's that sound? Sound fair?
Sounds good.
Yep.
Otherwise, you'll have to you have to take legal action. Okay, you want a motion to that effect, or is just direction enough?
Yeah, we should have a motion.
Okay? So,
Motion, it's a letter, has a week to respond and then 3 weeks to put them up as of today or tomorrow.
Second.
okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, what else we got here?
Realignment.
Realignment letter. Pop that one out of there.
So looking at your agenda packet on page 21, we received a letter from Anoka County. And in that letter from Anoka County, it identifies that in looking at several factors that have come up recently, looking at the funding mechanism, when we looked at the acquisition of right-of-way for the realignment, the acquisition of right-of-way was in the range of $2.5 million. And so we started to talk about whether or not the current alignment was the right decision. And we were at a point where, yes, we had the plans that were 90% done. And so Anoka County was still pursuing it and moving forward. But then we found out we had the issue with the allotment of dollars and whether or not we were going to get dollars for design, acquisition of right-of-way, and construction. And at this point, because we thought, well, maybe some of the dollars were in jeopardy, Anoka County did some reevaluation, and in the letter on page 21, they've identified 7 points as to why an alternative alignment would be beneficial. And because of that, it went before the County of Commissioners, and they have adopted the new realignment to pursue the realignment. And what they're asking of the city council is a resolution in support of pursuing the realignment or alignment B versus A in that letter. And so before you, you have the original alignment and the new alignment.
So I guess the question goes, that's all our land, so would they be purchasing that through, they'd still have to purchase that from us, right?
That is correct. We would still be one of the landowners that is impacted where they would acquire right-of-way.
And the question is, if you look to the left of the lower roundabout, there's a big dark area, and that's all wetland. And they have it partially in the wetland. I mean, I want it as close into that wetland as possible, you know, just to preserve the upland. Because if you put it on all the upland, then our land is useless.
So we did, we had a meeting yesterday on this, just a very preliminary meeting, and I did convey that to them, that, you know, looking at this, I know they're gonna limit the amount of wetland impacts, but certainly this alignment does have some wetland impacts. The ponds will be smaller, because if you remember, the original alignment that you have in front of you does show a very large pond, and that there will be a pond, but not nearly as big. And we have asked them to move it as close to West Freeway Drive as they can.
This way?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
And they feel that the acquisition for right-of-way in this scenario is greatly reduced because there are only 3 spots where we need to acquire right-of-way. A very small triangle here and a very small triangle up here. And this is all predicated on, all the design work for Lake Drive remains the same. There's no change. I mean, everything that
Yeah,
we've done is.
But
there's
the
no
question is how do you access this land here?
Well, if you look that there, it was identified and has been identified for a long period of time as wetland.
The whole thing?
So this area was always wetland, identified as wetland, and the only upland was along here, which is where we were gonna put the road originally. This was an east-west road here, all on city property. So in this particular scenario, it still preserves the upland in this area and the upland in this area, which is what we had before. And if you slide this down, we've asked them to slide it down.
So if there was a development in here, it would have to be all the way around the back to get in? There's no right in, right outs anywhere along this?
You know, we talked briefly, because if you look at this, whether there really is a need for a roundabout and whether it's just a T intersection.
It's almost like a T, isn't it?
And then you would be able to have access off that T, you know what I mean, off the intersection.
They would also entertain right in and right out, depending on the development.
Okay.
One thing to note too, to piggyback on what Elizabeth said, is that they're asking you to approve the alignment, not necessarily the layout, because they don't know if a roundabout is warranted with their warrants that they use. So this could either be, could possibly be like just a T intersection.
I mean, you could do replacement on have another T come off of here, right?
Right, and that's not shown, but that's open for discussion.
Okay.
Access to the west. And whether this is right where they're showing or whether it's a little farther
Yeah.
south.
Seems to me like if it was further south here, you would have better access to get out this way and leave that alone.
So that's not finalized, that specific location, but they're just asking to approve the alignment of the main 54.
I'm okay with it. You guys okay with it?
Fine.
I think it solves some issues.
Jeff?
I think so too. I don't know how much developable land we're gonna lose.
It's horrible, but, you know, it's bad either way, so.
Well, you know, regardless if the plant was gonna come or not, there was gonna be a lot of traffic through there anyway, so this should relieve the horsemen's concerns.
Dennis, this curve here, is that a, it's a 40 mile an hour?
Yeah, they've reduced their design speed to 40, which they are allowed to do with the new alignment, as opposed to trying to maintain a 55.
Right.
And then, one other thing Elizabeth mentioned is that they would likely still build all the improvements on 23 next year, and cut this off here, and this would probably be a 19 project, since they have to redesign it now.
So what happens to this street that was supposed to go across here?
There's no need for it.
No need for it?
All of these businesses have access, all of these businesses have access.
No, but when this went to develop, this isn't wetland here, is it? I don't
Yeah,
think
some
so.
of it is.
Some is?
Along here, that's wetland, up in this area.
Hmm.
We have to revisit that, whether you want that connected through or you want a cul-de-sac from the other side.
Okay, so, so someone want to make a motion to,
It's not a motion,
It's
it's
a
a
motion?
resolution, and in your agenda packet, Anoka County has recommended or given us a format for a resolution. I've tweaked it a little bit, and it is,
Jake's good with it? Dennis is good with it?
Yeah, again, I think it's worded that it's just the alignment, it's not the layout as shown.
Okay, staff's good with it, so, sure.
Is there a way to access our property right there? That's the property you were pointing to.
I mean, here?
Yeah, you see our property is right along, you know, that where you had your, in the middle there where you said it was wetland.
Oh, up in here?
That's all our property. So I'm wondering how we have access to that property.
Be one of two ways. It would either be allowed off of wherever this intersection is, through here, or similar to the city property on this side, you might be allowed right in, right out,
Right in, right out.
access up there.
Then turn around at the roundabout, which might be a reason to leave the roundabout, so the right in, right outs will work.
If there was a west leg on it,
Yeah.
then it might be justified.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Are we going to get a chance to, work with you guys as you're looking at this further, or how does this work?
Jacob, it'll be public.
I would defer to Dennis on the process at this point.
Yeah, you'd be able to work either through the city or with the county. I mean, it's the county's design. They're designing it in-house.
Well, it looks like we originally had plans for a road right here.
Right, that was when these businesses would not have access onto 54 anymore.
But I mean, we still could eventually have a plan in there for that same road to go in there.
The city could if they
Yeah.
so chose.
Right. So I mean, that would go along with Tracy's concern would be that road coming off 54.
Yeah, it would likely make sense to, try to line it up with, if this intersection was a little further south. So you'd
Okay.
have one intersection as opposed to two staggered ones.
Okay.
Okay, so someone want to make a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion on this resolution? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Engineers report.
The item I had on the agenda was an update on the Northeast Groundwater Management Area. Elizabeth, was that in the agenda packet? The map of the 5-mile area?
the 5 what?
The White Bear Lake? Is that it? Is that it?
A7.
Is that on?
It's in the,
I was just gonna have you pull up the map. I was at hard copy.
Right here. This one?
Yeah,
And
it's,
Dennis?
that's the easiest thing to reference. It's a map showing as part of the lawsuit that the White Bear Lake Association and homeowners brought against the DNR that the homeowners group won. There's a map showing, there was a ruling about a 5-mile area around White Bear Lake that would be, any new wells, new appropriations in that area would be, under scrutiny for new water appropriations by the DNR. So I just wanted to give a brief update. I was at a semi-annual meeting last Friday where Columbus is represented on the Technical Advisory Committee. And some of the main highlights were that, the lawsuit was, not in favor of the DNR, and they have appealed it or are going to be appealing that decision. They have set a protective elevation on the lake of 922, which just means historically, there's really been some ups and downs in the lake level, which everybody knows. 70% of the time, the lake is above 922, so that's kind of their protective elevation. Obviously, it was way below that in the last decade here. But there was, someone might ask, well, what are the real impacts? Well, there already has been one, and in Hugo, they had it actually was a sewer permit, but they were looking for dewatering, so that's a water appropriation permit, so that was denied or on hold. So it actually had an impact on development in an adjacent community since the ruling came out. So I just wanted the council to be aware of that. Obviously, Columbus is not within that 5-mile radius, so there's not a direct impact with water appropriation permits. Some of the analysis they've done, the USGS finished their model, call it a static model. So then the DNR hired an outside consultant to finish and make it a transient model so they can analyze different time periods and different seasons. What they found was that if every single well in that 5-mile radius, and it has an existing permit, was shut down, it would have a 6-inch effect annually on the lake, potentially, through their model. In dry seasons, cumulatively, that could be several feet. But, and the other impact that everybody thinks irrigation is a huge impact, especially residential. So they analyzed in their model, if residential irrigation was not allowed, residential irrigation, it would have an impact of 1 inch on the lake level. So residential irrigation does not have a big impact as people thought. It is some of these older wells. Most of these permits were done in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, so it's permits that are quite old, and obviously it's municipal wells and other industrial usage, so.
What are they talking, like the golf courses that are close to White Bear Lake?
That wasn't part of when they analyzed irrigation. They just wanted to look at residential, but they could look at that. They could model any type of a parameter they wanted to right now. So again, it's just an update on some of the information they found, that yes, it is having some real impacts in that 5-mile radius, and that the DNR is appealing the decision. Those are kind of the main highlights I wanted to hear.
So, when they have these meetings, they ever talk about, obviously the people around White Bear Lake feel they're special. What about all the other lakes? The lakes up in Lindstrom, I go there every day. All those lakes are way up to where they were 12 years ago when I came in there, and then they dropped just like White Bear Lake, and now it's back, so.
Yeah, I think they actually analyzed or modeled, several lakes in that area. White Bear Lake is, I'll call it one of the unique lakes in its depth, in that it's modeled connection to the groundwater aquifers. I think 60, 70 years ago, they used to augment the lake by pumping well water into the lake. Well, it was just, then it was sucking. It was a cycle. It was taking water out of the lake and putting it back in.
So are they still talking about pumping river water up to everybody's wells and all that other ridiculous stuff?
That hasn't been part of the discussion as of late. It's more that, what will this impact have? But the DNR also acknowledges that the lake needs to fluctuate for wildlife and plant habitation. But also the fact that as low as the lake was the last 10 years, there was no negative impact to water quality. And it's primarily recreational impact.
Okay.
So just update.
All right.
Just had a couple other things I didn't have on my agenda, real brief. After our Anoka County 54 meeting, we had another meeting that, this is just information again, that the county is planning on installing a signal at Broadway in Lexington. They've got funding for it. That would be 2000.
19, I think.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
I think it was 19.
17 and 18.
Oh, 17.
I saw 17 and 18.
Oh, because I saw 17, 18, but I thought it was a 19 project.
A 19 project. They'll be designing it next year, and they have funding for it, so there would not be, and since Columbus is not a state aid city, there would not be a cost to Columbus. There would be improvements on the north and south legs, some widening, but they're proposing to have a signal at that intersection.
It really needs it? I mean, it didn't, it's
It
not that
really, it
busy.
really needs it.
Hmm?
I travel that way every night, every day,
Hmm.
2 times, and it's a dangerous intersection.
Okay, they're gonna add lights?
I don't know the impact of
Okay.
of street lighting.
Okay.
So that's just FYI. And the last reminder was that, again, we'll be having 4 neighborhood meetings next week on 2 nights, Tuesday and Thursday, for the 2018 paving improvements.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, attorney's report.
Mr. Mayor, Council, have one item, and this is discussion, looking for just some guidance and confirmation of the approach. As you may know, the development, the sanctuary at Howard Lake development was approved a few weeks back by the Planning Commission for planned unit development. This item, very late in the process, the DNR made a determination, I believe about a week or 2 before the hearing, of the ordinary high water level for Howard Lake. The effect of the determination was to move the setback from of the lake from approximately 400 feet to only 50 feet from the proposed development. And in an effort to assist the development and allow it to proceed, we sought to approve a variance through the planned unit development variance process, which was subsequently determined by the DNR to be unacceptable in their view. And it's their perspective that because of the way that, despite the fact that we have an approved shoreland ordinance that was approved in 2006, I believe, by the DNR, because the subsequent adoption of the PUD ordinance by the city, they determined that it requires a variance. So we've tentatively agreed to direct the applicant to apply for variances, and that's ultimately the DNR may or may not agree with that approach, but it's tentatively the best approach that we have for cleaning it up, cleaning up the process and getting the development approved and proceeding.
So Jay Gustafson is here tonight. He is the developer on this project. Page A10 is the follow-up from the DNR indicating to us that they feel that the primary concern by the DNR that they were not given the opportunity to review and comment on the plat because it was late in the process when we found out about the ordinary high water mark, and it had already been, the hearing had already been published. And so at this point, they've identified 2 issues. Again, as Jake outlined, one is because this is a natural environment lake, the setback for development is 150 feet versus a general development lake, which the setback is 50 feet. In addition, they've also identified a density issue, an issue that we were not aware of because our ordinance was adopted with the density that is currently there. And so there are 2 things that they're objecting to at the current time. But first and foremost is that they are objecting because they statutorily were supposed to notice them, and they did not receive the notice. So when you adopted the preliminary plat, one of the conditions was if the DNR did not accept the PUD variance as we did process, that we did say that we would ask the applicant to go through the variance process. I've talked with Jay, and he doesn't have a problem going through the formal variance process. But what he has a problem with is if he has to abide by the 150-foot setback, and he has to abide by the density, instead of 26 units, he'll have 12
I saw that.
And at this time, I don't even know if he's going to get 12 if he has to go 150 feet from the ordinary high water mark, to be honest with you. I remember seeing the map, but I don't remember how many units you would get at the 150 foot line. So there are some issues here. And I'll let Jay kind of go over what he feels is
Before
going
we
to happen.
go down that path, I saw that where the line goes through most of your residences, proposed residences. Is there, what do we have to do to override the DNR? Can we just adopt this and we send them down the process and approve it and use the 50-foot mark? Is that going to work?
Well, at this point, we would recommend applying for a variance. If the DNR, at this point, we would recommend using the variance as the approach. If ultimately that is determined to not be acceptable, we may potentially have to adopt an ordinance amendment that would allow us to resolve it. Ultimately, we may not see eye to eye with the DNR, but
We
we'll
won't.
continue to. Right,
We
we will
won't.
continue to work
So-
on a way. The DNR does have significant limits on what they can and cannot do.
So should we just do the ordinance?
Well, we've determined that this is most likely, or the best way to at least proceed right now.
Okay.
And that would give us an opportunity to determine whether or not we can, once we have an application, then we can determine whether or not we can kind of thread the needle and get
Okay.
this variance through. And if not, we'll identify another approach that we can hopefully use.
Okay, so with that said,
How long will it take the variance to go through the DNR?
it's our variance, isn't it?
Our variance, and then DNR just gets to comment, and they get the same comment period as any public hearing. So we send them notice. They have 10 days to comment, just like everyone else, on the public hearing. And then they have, after we make our decision, they do have the right to appeal.
Can I follow? Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you. So on the first issue, the setback variance from 150 feet to 50 feet, it is definitely very necessary for the project.
I don't think you need to convince us of that, so.
And there are extenuating circumstances with the lake. The ordinary high water line is at the same elevation approximately as a 100-year floodplain, which I think is very unusual.
Right.
There's also a considerable buffer distance on this lake because of the wetlands that are involved. There's several hundred feet still from where the properties will be sitting to actually get out to the water.
Right.
On the other issue with the density, that was very much a surprise to me. Honestly, had I known that was going to be an issue, that would have put a pause on the project quite some time ago. So it's extremely difficult to hear about it so late in the process.
Who would, Jake or you, who knows this density? Who could explain that to us the best?
Well, the way that the density was explained to me, and I was unaware of the density also because in 2006, we went through a process where we adopted a shoreline ordinance because when we became a city, we then had jurisdiction over that. We sent our ordinance to the DNR, and we had the language in the ordinance at the time, and it was adopted. So at the time when Jay came in, we had no idea that there was another layer of requirements, or that the DNR were unaware that we had this residential overlay in this district. So that is new to us, and that was brought to my attention just within the last 10 days. And so in this particular case, apparently in the Shoreland District, because this is a natural environment lake, they have a 2-tier density standard, and when you adopt the ordinance, you can adopt an ordinance with those standards or a PUD ordinance that has some other criteria. We did not adopt the ordinance with PUD criteria, but that would not help us at this point. And I think when I talked to Dean about this, he and I are both on the same page, because the DNR regulates residential uses in the Shoreland District at this density, But for a commercial property, they do not regulate density. So you could have the entire lot covered with commercial, but they won't let you cover it with density for residences. So there is a big disparity between the two, and I think we need
How much?
to work this out.
What's big? I mean, you're talking 26. So what would you have to go down to with the density?
Well, I think they were saying 12. 12 units.
Oh, so not only would the density bring you to 12, so would the shoreline bring it, to adjustment of the 150 feet.
No, the adjustment from 50 feet to, from 150 feet down to 50-foot setback, without that, it would eliminate all 10 of the lakefront properties, and I believe 1 or 2 of the non-lakefront properties.
Okay.
It would essentially cut the project in half, which would make it unviable.
So what's the process for the density issue, other than, is it a variance as well?
It's a variance as well.
So if he starts the variance process, it'll come to us, and will that spawn off some ordinance amendments? Potentially?
Potentially. I believe that there's going to have to be negotiation in there,
Negotiation with,
the DNR.
well, I mean, might as well call up the Army Corps too, maybe they have something to say. The watershed people and Bowser, we should maybe, sorry.
We don't
Okay.
like the DNR.
No. No, they own half our city. All right,
Are
so,
we gonna give it, we need the variance to start out with a variance, right?
so is that, that be your intention, is to start the variance process?
Yes, that would be my intention, to start
Okay.
the variance.
All right,
And we would, you know what I mean, as soon as Jay got the applications in, we would start, we would process as soon as, process as quickly as we can, because I know at this point you need some answers.
How many other properties border, in the PUD border that same, they all do? Got
I
it.
was just going to say, it's the entire suburban overlay
Yep.
on the north side. So
So we need to solve this.
we need to solve this.
Okay, so we'll do what we can do for you.
So you're saying that property down there, you could put commercial in there? Easier? Now, what's more harmonious with that than townhomes?
I agree with you.
It would
This was.
certainly be my opinion that senior housing would be more
Yes.
desirable on the lakefront than
Absolutely,
commercial.
townhomes and where people aren't paying a bunch of, yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to do a lot of selling here, we just probably have to apply to your permit.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thanks for coming, Jay. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry to make you wait till the end.
Good luck.
All right, next up. What do we got next up? Anything else, Jake?
I have nothing.
Okay, council report. Bill?
Well, I got a letter this week from the Campaign Finance Board, and they released me of all of my fines and penalties, so that's a good news for that. I did call the lady and talk to her. We still don't have any representation there because of this, so.
I would never sign up for that. So we still need
Well,
to,
that's why I told her none of the council members want to be on it because of this, so, but she has no control over it, so this is something we should take up with Miss Benson and
okay,
our other rep, Cal Bar, and see if there's anything, because this is just way overreach.
yeah. Anything else?
No, I think we covered it all.
Jeff?
I got nothing.
Mark?
We had a fire board meeting, you were there.
I was.
What's that?
I was.
Yeah.
I was the chair of it, so I was
Chair,
there.
the big guy.
Cheered that too?
I drew the short straw.
Allocate money for pre-fire inspections for businesses. Go in.
Do what?
You should explain that. They're doing pre-plans, which means a person comes out, finds out where all the disconnects are for gas, fire, electric, where the keys are, who the owners are. It's basically a pre-plan so that when the firemen come, they're not like, oh, what's going on here? So it's all in a GPS, it's all on an iPad. And right now they have 20 of Columbus and 50 of, 100 of the Forest Lake ones done. I
Yeah.
forgot. They're only 20% through it. So
They're looking for hydrants and stuff?
No.
and
It's a safety thing.
just so that there's a plan, so that
Businesses.
Yeah,
They go through each one and figure out where the shut-offs are and all that.
yeah.
Who's running doing
Al.
that?
Well, Al will do that. Well, Al and Attempt did the ones that got done. But the concept is in lieu of a fire inspector for the first year or so here is we're going to have this plan. We're going to allocate some money to get temps, or I think the first thing they offered was to offer, not to take your spotlight here, but they offered so much per inspection to the volunteer fire department people, so that they can go out and for 20, 30 bucks,
So
whatever it ends up.
who's gonna establish the boundaries? We've been through this.
The boundaries.
Yeah, the boundaries of that person inspecting.
Well, it's not about compliance, it's about information gathering, so it's not saying you get ticketing because your fire extinguisher's out of date.
So they're gonna come out and they're gonna look for electrical.
They're just gonna note where the electric box is, where the shut-off is, whether or not there's a roof access on the left corner of the building in case they gotta get in the roof, and they'll have, it's very technical to make the fireman's job easier and safer.
They put all that stuff in a computer then?
Yeah, all goes in the computer, yeah.
And it's a good PR, to get people aware too, so.
So we figured they'd have it done we gave them $30,000 to have it done by August?
Yeah, 8 months.
Yeah. So you might want to put that in there. Okay.
That's it?
Up to 30,000.
Yeah.
All right, Danny?
I was informed a couple of weeks ago that they're putting an incinerator next to my property out on the maintenance building.
Rodent incinerator.
Roadkill incinerator.
Roadkill incinerator.
Nice.
And they didn't talk to none of the people in the neighborhood or nothing.
Elizabeth knew.
Yeah, I know too. We knew too, because they brought it up last, or they didn't say where they're gonna put it, or if they were gonna put it. And it was shut down for a while, but found out Tuesday that it's back in business, gonna be put up. It's just a small, like, chest freezer.
Yep.
And if it's ran properly, there'd be no smoke or no stink from it.
Right. No carcasses left over.
No,
They
nothing
bring them
like
there,
that.
burn them, and it's
Nothing
done.
stored out. It's
Yep.
just- What they explained to me that they have to do, they have to fire the thing up, get the operating temperature, open the door, throw the deer or whatever in it. The smell you might get is burnt hair for a few seconds till they shut the things up.
Must burn really hot, huh?
It burns real high. It's a totally cremation incinerator. I mean, it burns.
Must be propane burner or something?
It's
D-
natural
yeah,
gas. Be natural gas. We
I
got
thought he
nothing.
said it was diesel, or it was,
I don't know if it.
Two
might
different
not get it
ones,
that
Oh, they-
but I thought he said it was gas, but don't quote me on that, but I thought that's.
I was told it needed no hookups, it was self-contained gasoline or something, but
I don't know. There's natural gas in the area, so I assumed it was natural gas.
I don't
Like
know
you
if that's
move it
true.
around?
No, they will if it's a problem and get enough complaints and move it someplace else,
Well,
But
So it's a portable, not in a building.
Right.
no, it's all by itself, sitting in the back corner of behind the maintenance building.
They poured a cement slab for it, didn't they?
They probably will. They haven't yet. It wasn't,
Generic slab.
nobody know what it was till a couple of the residents seen him doing work there and asked him a question. So, but then, since then, Rhonda sent out, I talked to Rhonda, she sent out a letter explaining everything that was going to happen and what's going on, but I haven't talked to the neighbors and see what they say. If it's no stink or smell, it's a good way to dispose of them.
so you're more at ease with it now, because I know you were concerned a few weeks ago.
They what?
You're more at ease with it
Oh,
now that you know the facts?
If they would put it in with nobody finding it, I don't think nobody would know it was there. It's one of them things, But
It's hard to believe they could burn a deer without having any odor come off for the full time they're burning.
It depends how hot it gets, and it says about 2-hour process to burn down to ash.
You'd think they'd have to go through the city to put something like that on. I mean, if
They
a
did, they
resident-
came.
Well, the city would have to
They
post
notified us.
notices.
It's not a zoning issue.
I asked Rhonda about it, and Rhonda said, yeah, I knew it was gonna put in a maintenance building, but I thought it was gonna put in the main maintenance building. It was kinda, they didn't know this, put it out in that.
They have more than one, or just the one?
Just the one, they put it
The whole
out there
county?
because if the
Yep.
deer carcasses are too bad for the science center to take them, then they bring them over there and burn them. And so that's,
What a great job.
yeah, you could be an animal collector.
No. So the skunks will go there too, probably.
The what?
Skunks. Raccoon.
Anything we're going to, yes, any kind of animal that's roadkill.
The whole city of Anoka, the animals get sent over here, and that's what we get. We get dead animals sent
Well,
over.
but they're on the way to they're usually bringing them over to the wildlife center to feed the wolves.
The wildlife center is moved now, so it's no longer in
That they used
our
to.
property here. So time will tell.
That's what the county thinks of us.
I told them if they get a smell, I would let them know. And,
Yeah, if it's right by the bike path too.
yeah, it's gonna be right by the bike
I
path.
did get a few calls on it too, and it concerned me somewhat.
Okay.
County can just do
That's all I
that.
got to say.
All right, I got nothing. Moving on to Public Works report. Obviously, he's not here. So, Public Information Coordinator. Okay, City Administrator's report.
I have one thing on my list. I'd like you to go to the additions page in the additions, and I just wanted to bring to your attention that I have received emails, voicemails about the trucking facility. And I had the opportunity to put together the conditions for the conditional use permit for KZ Trucking. And the emails, I just wanted to let you know that the emails are not exactly matching up, which I assumed was going to happen about what people heard and what actually happened. So, looking at the first one, it says, we met on Saturday, and jumping down, it says, at this time, it looks like a wall will not be needed, but will be addressed 1 year later. If there's any problems, we'll be meeting, with the property owners. Hopefully, we can do it with the city. And then in the next email, it indicates that, and I don't know why she indicated that the matter was closed, because I never talked to her, but in the email, it goes on to say, if you look at my email above, I said that at this time, the trees will be planted and a wall would not be needed. I don't know, we never talked about a wall, so I'm not sure what that wall actually meant. But she says, but it will be addressed in 1 year. And you have the minutes in front of you for the meeting. We never talked about what would happen in a year. So I don't know where that concept about a year, that there would be a review in a year, came from.
Don't remember that at all.
But I didn't attend the Saturday meeting, so this is what their interpretation from the Saturday meeting was. And then Peggy then left me a message, and she also talked about trees and some groundwork. And then she talked about when it was going to be complete. And then she talked about a sound barrier. And
Which
again,
one was Peggy?
I'm not sure, I'm not sure, they were all at the
Jody.
same meeting.
You remember which one was Peggy? She's the one that lived to the west, southwest. But she lives where behind the building was gonna be. Right directly across from the man caves. Right. So what did she want? After she found out where the building was gonna be, her concerns were not as whatever as after she found that out. And then they all agreed, standing out on the road, they did not want a fence, they want trees. It was that simple. So what's the problem?
And I think that their understanding was that somehow this was going to be addressed 1 year later.
We never, within the next, we talked about, because it was getting into fall already, getting the trees moved in and stuff might be difficult right now.
Redaction.
Huh?
Nothing, go ahead.
So, that's where the whole conversation went. And by the end of the 2 hour standing around talking about everything, that's what they came down to. They didn't want a fence, they wanted trees. Peggy was now under the understanding this building's gonna block most of whatever she thought she might see. They're gonna move the trailers over to the east side of the building, or would that be the north side of the building, and line them up there so that the truck the trucks wouldn't be as close to the property line, blah, blah, blah.
Right, but this is the voicemail that was left for me. It says here, I was just wondering, has it been approved? And if so, what is the deadline for them to get the complete next June 2018? I thought that what was said, or maybe I'm confusing that with the sound barrier. And upon completion, so anyway, just a couple of questions.
There is no sound barrier, it was trees. They all of them said trees only.
I understand what you're saying, but then you go on and Kate says, I wanted to follow up on the meeting the other morning. What language will be added to my conditional use permit in regards to complaints? And how open does it leave me in regards to my operation? If you get one call, will you demand a fence? I would like to see it written so I can have my attorney look at the language.
Well, didn't we already discuss that when she came back in here, that she had to put trees up? The next meeting after that, our meeting here, we talked about her having to put trees in along there large enough to
I understand what you're saying, but these are the,
What do you want us to do?
These are the emails that I'm getting, and they're basically saying to me, please make sure you understand this. They're telling me that I need to understand that it will be addressed in 1 year.
I never heard. I don't
You know,
remember anything about that.
we didn't discuss that, and I wasn't at the meeting, and that wasn't what was there. So I want to bring this to your attention because this is not what was discussed, and it's not in the conditions.
What are you
Okay.
talking about?
I think we need to figure out how we're gonna, what's gonna go into a conditional use permit. Was there anything added? Just figure out what that is, send it down there, and that's what's in there. Isn't it that simple, or am I missing something here?
No, it ended up being very simple. I don't know, I think I don't understand. I understand what we all sat there and talked about, and I'm telling you that. They said trees. They didn't want a fence, they wanted trees, that's it.
These are the same people.
I understand that, I was there.
These are the follow-up emails to your meeting.
Yeah, but I don't understand what the problem is, so she has to have the trees within the next year, right? She understands she has to put the trees in there.
No, these are the people, this is not Kate, these are the neighbors.
I know that.
Right, but if you read, the email says, we met on Saturday, October 7th, with Bill and Jody Krebs and Katie and Kenny about the wall or the tree that would be going on the Zakowski's land. We came up with a plan to plant trees along the natural berm in the back and around the corner of Humber and 135th Avenue. At this time, it looks like the wall will not be needed, but will be addressed 1 year later.
No, there is going to be no wall. We did not talk about 1 year later. We talked about trees of a size to be put in there with as minimal impact.
I guess to shorten this up, what's in the conditions right now?
The conditions are before you. They're in the October 10th meeting. The conditions just say that they're going to submit a landscape plan and that they're going to plant a row of trees on the north.
Well, let Michelle know that's what's in the conditions, and then I think that's all you need to do.
That's exactly what we talked
Okay.
about, just
So,
what the conditions said.
I don't
That's exactly
really
what-
know what there else is to do here, but
Yeah.
ask for adjournment.
Okay, but you realize what the situation you're putting me in?
Well,
These are addressed to me saying that they are not happy, or that what their understanding is not what we did. So I'm certainly going to do that. But my point is it puts me in the middle of it because now they're thinking that I'm going to somehow in a year review it.
no, they had a year to put the trees up, not a year to review it. So I'd send her a copy of this
Yeah.
conditional use permit, right? And she could say, this is what the council approved. If it's not what you understood, that's what happened.
This meeting that we were out there on Saturday morning discussing this with the neighbors, which was a very.
It's irrelevant at this point.
No, it's relevant because.
Not really.
Because that's why we put in that conditional use permit that she uses trees.
But what her interpretation of it now is irrelevant because we have a conditional use permit in place. You should let her know what it is, and then if she's not okay with it, then she's got something.
But they attended the planning commission meeting. The planning commission established conditions Then, based on the meeting on Saturday, when you met on Tuesday, you changed the conditions.
Yep,
You removed, yes, you did. You removed the condition for fencing.
yep, because they
Yep.
said they didn't need
Based on the
fencing.
Saturday.
They didn't want it, if I remember
didn't
right.
want it.
Right, they wanted trees that would grow within a year.
And if they were all sitting here in front of us, I'd say that's exactly what was said.
But what they're saying in here is there were more conditions to that. Their understanding is that there were more conditions than that, and that's not what got in the conditions.
The only thing they asked for on Saturday morning was trees along the east and north side of the
Elizabeth,
property.
can you just send them that copy, then send a copy of the minutes for the meeting, that meeting we had? Then it's all black and white.
That's what I'm just gonna send them minutes.
So
I don't know what else, if you start going back on what was said at that meeting, it's all hearsay, first off. Second off, you're supposed to pay attention at that meeting.
Yes. you're
But
right.
that's how we came
But you
along.
changed conditions based on hearsay from the meeting.
They were here.
We did.
Yeah, you did.
Well, but they were here. Some of them were here.
Yeah, Elizabeth, it's not hearsay. That's
Who was here?
exactly what was said.
No, who was here?
They were here.
Not all of them.
They were here during the planning commission meeting, the hearing. Conditions were set. Then there was a meeting on Saturday, and
Yep.
an understanding amongst all the neighbors was set. On Tuesday, you changed conditions based on the Saturday meeting.
Okay, I hear you.
Based on Tuesday, I got 3 emails, which I was showing you as a result. And they're asking me now, as a result of that meeting, if in here, they're saying, what about 1 year later? What's going to happen with complaint? I mean, they're asking me now all of these other
Stuff
things.
they heard at the planning commission.
Things they heard, you know what I mean, they take from the planning commission, they took from the Saturday meeting, and now we have a set of conditions. But the conditions never mention anything about 1 year later. So what they heard on Wednesday and Saturday is not what's in the conditions. I just wanted to let you know that this is sometimes what happens. People hear things, and then the conditions are not what they heard. Then they send me emails and tell me to make sure that I understand this, that it's not a done deal. And then they get mad at me when I say to them, but that's not what's in the conditions.
So the Tuesday meeting that was here, there was at least one of them, maybe 2 of them that was here. The gentleman that lives directly through, he's the direct effect by the headlights. He's right straight through the parking lot. I don't remember what his name was.
Andrew.
Andrew. He sat out here and we went through that whole thing. He was here with Kate. The rest, there may not have been the other ones, but he was here. He knows and he was at the Saturday thing too, so he knows exactly what was said. I would just send him what the results were and the minutes of the meeting and let it buck. They declined a fence. There. And the 1 year thing, I don't understand what that is. She has to put the trees in. So what is I don't understand what the 1 year is, Elizabeth. Am I missing something?
Well, at this point, I think we should point out that the appeal period is likely over. I don't know when it was determined. And if they'd like, have him come back and address the council during a public open forum. I think that's the best option. We'll confirm the appeal period and that they missed it if there was an opportunity.
How would that work on an appeal? I mean,
Well, they could, if they disagree with the council's decision, she has the right to appeal it to
the council or up to above us?
District court.
District court, okay.
district court. If they didn't attend the hearing and didn't have an opportunity, or didn't
No,
address the
they
council.
all attended the hearing. They all put their concerns on the hearing. They were here for the planning commission hearing.
Yeah.
This is the
Then-
follow-up emails one came in on Sunday, one came in on Monday. I mean, I had a chance to review the minutes, because the minutes were approved tonight from that meeting. These are follow-up emails that were received to that. And all I'm saying is Kate now wants a written explanation about how we're going to address complaints if there are complaints from the neighbors because she didn't put up the fence.
Well,
Again,
there's no fence required.
right.
So there's no fence required, and the complaints would go through the standard complaint process. Just respond, I guess.
Oh.
I don't know what else to tell you.
I realize that.
Sorry. Do you have anything else?
No,
What do
nothing.
you want us to do?
I wasn't looking for you to do anything. What I was looking for is that what you talk about in a meeting and what people tend to hear and understand, that can be two different things. And I kind of get squashed in the middle.
No, I know.
Because you had 3 people at a meeting, had 3 different interpretations, and the conditions didn't come out that way.
Okay, the next planning commission is on the 15th. You guys are all going to be here, right? If you can find a place to stand.
Should we can we get reserve seating?
There is no reserve seating. I talked to Jake about that, and there is no way to kick someone out of their seats. Those are free seats for the first
put-
one.
Reserved on the seats.
We can show up back here at 5 o'clock then, get a seat.
You get a reserve seat. Okay, you're the only one. All right.
Whoever should.
What?
We should be able to sit on a seat.
I have a reserved seat right in the back corner back there.
Well, this is going to be all reworked. There's going to be solid chairs, no tables. There'll be 250 people in here. There'll be a speaker out in the hallway. There'll be 2 television sets in the senior center, and anyone speaking will be at a podium. A table will be removed. It'll be well accommodated. All right.
Save me a seat.
No, get here early. 6:30. Doors open at 6:30.
Can we come to the door at 6 o'clock though and get in here?
You could probably do that. I guess you have a key, so do I. Calendar of meetings on page 28. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.